statement game for Detroit, a statement game for Cade Cunningham. Can you imagine the level of swagger that you have to feel as a Pistons fan to not just beat New York in every single meeting that they've had so far this season, but to beat New York at MSG in the fashion that they did last night? Just pure and utter domination against your bitter rivals. If you're a Pistons fan waking up this morning, I hope that you are just walking a little bit lighter. I hope that your music sounds a little bit better and your morning coffee tastes just a little bit better, because that's the kind of feeling that you can get from a massive performance last night. And you see it right there. Cade Cunningham made history. He did something that only LeBron James and Allen Iverson have done in the history of the NBA. And that's put up 40 plus points and 10 plus assists at Madison Square Garden. And oh yeah, by the way, added 8 rebounds, 2 blocks onto the stat line and put up 15 of his 42 points from beyond the arc. It was a masterclass, not just from Cade Cunningham, but that entire team as a whole. But Fitz, if I may, I feel like I'm taking even more away from the Knicks this morning than I am the Pistons. Now, look, Pistons fans, this is nothing against you. This is not about you. It's not because I don't love you, because we love you very much here on this show. But we knew that the Pistons were going to be a force to be reckoned with in the East. We knew that Cade Cunningham was a legitimate MVP candidate, and we will get into that in just a second. We knew all those things about the Pistons. We knew that they had the ability to completely take over games. We knew Cade Cunningham had the ability to do that as well. But the Knicks side of things, there is just far more pressure. You fired Tom Thibodeau last year because you set the expectation that falling short of the NBA Finals was not good enough, that would not be tolerated. So they fired their coach because getting to the Eastern Conference Final was not enough in New York. We heard the owner of the New York Knicks get up on the radio and say, yeah, we expect to be in the finals. We should expect to be there. That's the expectation in New York. And you made some moves at the deadline to bolster up your defense, and you give up 40 plus to Cade Cunningham? Like, that's not a team that looks like they're going to be able to come out of the East. And look, I know that postseason is far different than a single game in the regular season. I wholeheartedly understand that. But if I'm a Knicks fan, knowing what the expectation is in New York, I don't feel good about that today.
It is okay for not every regular season game to have the same value, to your point. Certainly mean more. At home, when you're at the Garden, when you're taking on a Detroit team that's still shorthanded with a couple of people due to suspensions. You have all of these different elements that play into why the Knicks needed a statement. I think the statement that they made last night is that they don't belong in the same category as teams like Detroit. Like, I don't love ranking things. I like to put things on shelves. When you walk into a bar, you say, give me a top shelf vodka. Okay, there's several brands that belong on that shelf. I think what we learned last night is that when we talk about the top shelf teams in the East, the Knicks are not on the same shelf as the Pistons, and it's not even close. Saw the best player on the court take over, for sure. And we can have a real conversation about MVC as whether or not Cade Cunningham belongs in the MVP as the favorite at this point. Even beyond that, I do think you're right. I think there is a massive takeaway that the Knicks are nowhere close to being where they need to be if they want to have a legitimate title shot. This isn't just about the fact that they lost. It's how they lost, it's where they lost, and it's who they lost to that has me stepping back and saying, hey, this is a proof of concept game. And the proof of concept we got last night is that the Knicks and the Pistons are not playing the same style of basketball right now. They are not in the same league when we talk about dominance in the East. Now, you mentioned Cade, MVC, I make the joke, but I mean, frankly, as much love as we give SGA, as much love as we give many players in this league, my God, like at some point, we've got to give some love to Cade Cunningham and the way that he's playing right now.
I mean, if you haven't been paying attention yet, I think a 40-plus point performance on the road against this Knicks team should put him on the map for you. And our producer, Mike Goldfarb, texted us last night and said, Cade's the MVP. I've seen all I needed to see. Done, signed, sealed, delivered. It's over. Cade's the MVP. I think it's really, really easy to say that coming off of that game last night. How could you not say that coming off of that game last night? I'm going to pump the brakes on that just a little bit, because I don't think that we can overreact to just one game. Even though a big time reaction from that game, I don't think would be considered an overreaction because that's just how dominant Cade Cunningham was last night. But I think we still have to keep SGA in mind here. I mean, SGA is still averaging more points than Cade Cunningham, significantly more points. SGA's season average is nearly 32 points a game. Cade Cunningham sitting at 26. And while that's no slouch, 32 points a game is something that can't be ignored. And SGA is averaging more assists per game. SGA is averaging a higher field goal percentage than Cade Cunningham is. And also, SGA is doing it in the West. We talked all season long about how wide open this East is. While that doesn't take away from what the Pistons are doing and what Cade Cunningham is doing, just feels even more impressive when you're doing it against the likes of the San Antonio Spurs, the Denver Nuggets, and how crowded it is in the West. All of that being said, though, I think the counter argument to that is, like, we talk about Heisman moments, like we talk about MVP moments in football, how we saw Matthew Stafford have a handful of MVP caliber games. Doing what Cade Cunningham did to the Knicks last night, that's your Heisman moment. That's your MVP moment.
I can buy that. I can buy that that's the MVP moment. I can buy that that's a Heisman moment. I think you're right, and it's an important point to make, though, that the gauntlet. And one thing I want to be consistent, sort of cover this, because when we talked yesterday, about City, one thing we mentioned is that their starting five has been on the court for a total of 42 minutes so far this season. While Oklahoma City is a talented team, where Oklahoma City is not simply because of that talented team, mostly in part because of SGA. I get that we want to just reach SGA from this throne because, frankly, there are plenty of people that find his style of basketball to be boring, that don't love the way that SGA plays for whatever reason. To me, what we've seen clearly from Cade Cunningham is it's dynamic and it's wonderful to watch, but that doesn't take away from SGA. SGA is still MVP at this point, Caroline.
That's what I feel too. But also, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but, my overall thought right now is SGA is your MVP favorite, should be your MVP favorite, but I'm not ignoring Cade Cunningham. I absolutely do think that if Cade Cunningham continues on this trajectory, he can eclipse SGA, especially if SGA is hurt or banged up, he's not available, and Cade Cunningham continues to carry the Pistons, which is what he's done really for a majority of the season, but especially what he did last night. Like, my mind is totally and completely open. Just because I think SGA is the MVP waking up on February 20th does not mean that I think that Cade Cunningham cannot be the MVP, come voting time. But I Googled this morning. I was just doing, some research this morning, just kind of gathering my thoughts, gathering what the commentary was across the country and some reactions to that game. So I was just doing my research and I saw an article with the headline, expect SGA to be back to back to win his back to back or second consecutive MVP, whatever the verbiage was. And I checked when it was posted, and it was posted at like 6:00 this morning. So I'm thinking to myself, wait, how can we say, like, expect it? Expect this to happen. That's your takeaway? That's the story waking up on Friday morning? Is that just expect SGA to win his second consecutive MVP? Even though I'm saying right now that I think SGA is the MVP today, to have that reaction and to have that be the number one story waking up after a 40+ point game and a 13 assist game and an 8 rebound game from Cade Cunningham is totally and completely unfair. Like, again, just because that's how I feel on February 20th does not mean that that's how I'm going to feel forever and always. And the same thing, I would implore everyone to think about, look, just because I felt this way on January 5th or on February 1st doesn't mean that that's how I have to feel forever. We have to keep our minds open to this, Fitz. This is not a race that's totally and completely over with, in my opinion, with all respect to what SGA is doing. Cade Cunningham absolutely has a very strong resume. And if anybody wants to say Cade Cunningham is my MVP today, you're not going to hear much pushback from me.